The annual Carter family New Year's Eve gathering was in full swing at my stepfather Robert's sprawling ski lodge in Aspen, where status was measured by the sparkle of diamond jewelry and the logos stitched on ski jackets. I sat quietly on a leather sofa near the roaring fire, dressed in what they assumed was my modest attempt at evening attire, actually a tailored Alexander McQueen jumpsuit that cost more than their annual ski passes combined. "Look what Chloe got me," my stepsister Felicity squealed, ripping the ribbon off a velvet box to reveal a Cartier bracelet glittering under the lodge's chandeliers. "Daddy's hedge fund must be crushing it," she added with a smug grin. I returned a polite smile, thinking about the press release scheduled to drop the following week, announcing my silent acquisition of their beloved family business. Some victories required the perfect stage. And what did you bring, Natalie?" Robert's wife Elaine purred, her voice dripping fake warmth as her eyes flicked toward the small box resting in my lap. "Something homemade again?" A hush fell over the group as all eyes turned toward me. Last year's homemade gift, a commissioned art piece from an avant-garde sculptor, had become their favorite family joke. "Just a little token," I replied softly, silently picturing the private vineyard in Tuscany I'd purchased last month, one that made Robert's Aspen lodge look quaint by comparison. My father shifted awkwardly in his armchair. Ever since marrying Elaine 7 years ago, he'd started adopting her obsession with wealth displays, forgetting all the lessons about humility he'd once taught me. "Well," Felicity said, pushing her new diamond bracelet higher up her wrist, "at least you brought something. Must be tough with your consulting business." If only they knew that CSG Partners, the mysterious consulting firm making headlines for rewriting the rules of global trade, was mine. And that their precious family company was only still afloat because I'd chosen not to finalize the takeover until after New Year's. "It pays the bills," I said mildly, noticing the way Elaine recoiled at the phrase as though it smelled cheap. "Speaking of bills," my stepbrother Julian chimed in, swirling his bourbon. "Heard you finally ditched that shoebox condo downtown. Couldn't keep up anymore?" I thought of my new penthouse, the entire top floor of the most exclusive glass tower in downtown Denver, bought outright while they juggled balloon payments on their ski homes. "Found a new spot," I replied casually, glancing at my phone. A message blinked across the screen. "Sovereign fund from Singapore confirmed. Ready to wire funds." "Probably just another rental," Felicity whispered to Elaine, loud enough for me to hear. Some people, I thought with a private smile, really shouldn't talk about real estate. The slopes, luxury chalets, and boutique resorts I owned in 3 countries generated more income each month than Robert's precious family firm made in an entire year. "Natalie," Elaine said in her syrupy voice, wearing that carefully concerned look she reserved for Instagram posts about charity work, "your father and I have been discussing something. There's an entry-level analyst position opening up at Carter Holdings. We thought it might give you a fresh start." A fresh start. While they'd been plotting my rescue, I'd been orchestrating the biggest corporate acquisition Denver had ever seen. The deal that would put Carter Holdings under my complete control. "That's thoughtful," I murmured as my phone buzzed again. Another message flashed from Marcus, my CFO. "Private jet prepped and fueled. Singapore team expects you at midnight." "See?" Elaine said brightly to my father. "I told you she'd come around. Everyone needs help sometimes." Help. Like when they'd tried to block my inheritance from my mother, forcing me to claw my way up and build my empire from scratch. The trust fund they'd held hostage in legal battles was pocket change next to the fortune I'd amassed entirely on my own terms. "Time for gifts," Felicity announced, bouncing on her designer heels, practically vibrating with eagerness to show off more overpriced trinkets. "Natalie, why don't you go first? Let's see what you managed to afford this year." The room buzzed with thinly veiled laughter. I picked up the small stack of packages at my side, each wrapped in understated silver paper. "It's nothing extravagant," I said modestly, handing identical slim boxes to every family member. "Just something I thought might interest you." "How quaint," Elaine sniffed as she delicately peeled back the paper on hers. Inside each box lay a single share certificate. "Stock?" Julian barked out a laugh. "In what? Some tiny startup?" CSG Partners, I replied quietly. The laughter died so quickly the room felt vacuum-sealed. Even Elaine's frozen socialized smile cracked at the edges. That's impossible, my father breathed. CSG Partners doesn't sell public shares. No one even knows who owns it. Actually, I said, standing up slowly. Right on cue, my personal assistant, Evelyn, who'd been working undercover as Elaine's seasonal hospitality coordinator, stepped into the lounge, tablet in hand. Miss Carter, she said crisply, your jet is waiting for you on the tarmac. The Singapore Sovereign Wealth Delegation is confirmed and expecting your arrival at midnight. The silence was delicious. Elaine was the first to find her voice, though her lipstick couldn't hide how pale she'd gone. Private jet? Surely there's been some mistake. Own the world's leading consulting firm? I finished for her, savoring the shock rippling across the room. I do. CSG Partners, I repeated, folding my arms. Carter Strategic Global, though I suppose I should have mentioned that earlier. Felicity was furiously swiping at her phone screen, her new Cartier bracelet clinking against the case, her designer gifts completely forgotten. This says CSG Partners is valued at, her voice broke off as she stared at the screen. That's impossible. 50 billion, as of this morning, I confirmed, glancing at the diamond watch on my wrist. Though after the Singapore deal tonight, that number will probably double. Julian dove for his laptop, typing so hard the keys rattled. CSG Partners, they're the ones quietly acquiring major corporations all over the world. They just acquired. Carter Holdings, I supplied helpfully, flashing a polite smile. The paperwork finalizes next week. I gestured toward the slim boxes I'd distributed. Consider those stock certificates your severance packages. My father surged to his feet, his face gone pale under the golden light of the antler chandelier. You're buying my company? Already bought it, I corrected gently. Those certificates are simply courtesy copies. The board approved the sale last month. Elaine's perfectly manicured hands trembled as she set down her champagne glass, barely avoiding a spill. The sudden board meetings. All the mysterious interest from overseas investors. She whispered. All me, I nodded. All my team. We've been planning this acquisition for quite some time. Your country club friends were especially helpful. It's astonishing what people confess over martinis when they think they're chatting with old money. But you live in that tiny condo downtown, Felicity stammered. You wear the same clothes over and over. I smoothed a hand over my Alexander McQueen jumpsuit. This outfit alone costs more than your car, and as for the condo, I own the building. I let the words sink in before adding, along with most of the prime commercial properties in Denver's financial district. At that precise moment, Evelyn reappeared at the edge of the great room, holding a sleek tablet. Miss Carter, she said crisply, the Singapore team is requesting your input on the Carter Holdings integration timeline. Also, the interior designers need final approval on the new corporate headquarters redesign. The headquarters, Julian croaked, looking as though he might be sick. You're redesigning our headquarters? I bought the headquarters, Julian, I reminded him. Though you're all welcome to apply for positions in the new company, I hear the entry-level roles build excellent character. Elaine finally lurched to her feet, her elegant composure crumbling. This is insane, she sputtered. You're nothing but a billionaire, I finished sweetly. Elaine, I'd suggest you get used to it. And if you think the Carter family drama is over, think again. Hit subscribe and join me for the next chapter, where secrets get even bigger and fortunes change faster than a New Year's countdown. Global business leader, I said, tilting my head slightly. The person who now controls your family's entire financial future? I offered them my sweetest smile. Funny how perspectives change, isn't it? My phone buzzed yet again. A fresh flurry of messages blinked across the screen from the Singapore team. The Sovereign Wealth Fund was practically vibrating with excitement to partner with CSG Partners' elusive founder. Tonight's revelation wouldn't just rock my family. It would send shockwaves through the entire business world. Why, my father asked, his voice quiet and oddly fragile. Why all the secrecy? Why let us believe? That I was struggling? That I was poor? I finished for him. That I needed your pity and patronizing offers of help? I walked over to the massive windows overlooking the snowy slopes outside. In the distance, runway lights gleamed where my private jet waited at the Aspen airfield. "Because you all taught me something priceless," I said, glancing back at them. "That the best kind of success is built quietly, far away from people eager to diminish it." Felicity was still staring down at her stock certificate, like it might transform into a pile of gold bars. "These shares," she stammered, "they're worth more than everything in this room combined," I confirmed lightly. "Consider it my New Year's gift, though I should mention they're non-voting shares." I gave them a wry smile. "I learned about keeping control from watching how your family runs its business." At that moment, Evelyn approached again, tablet in hand. "Miss Carter," she said with calm precision, "the car is waiting whenever you'd like to depart for the airfield." I gathered my things, including the sleek leather briefcase they'd mocked earlier as cheap. In truth, it was crafted from rare exotic leather, hand-stitched by artisans who only accepted commissions from billionaires. "Well, this has been festive," I said brightly, slipping the briefcase under my arm. "But I have a meeting in Singapore to attend." I gestured toward Evelyn. "She'll provide details on the Carter Holdings transition. I'd suggest updating your resumes." As I moved toward the doorway, Elaine made one final desperate attempt to reclaim the moment. "You can't just leave, it's New Year's Eve." "We're family." I paused, turning back to face them, savoring every stunned expression. "Family?" I echoed softly. "Like when you contested my mother's will? When you tried to force me into a respectable corporate job? When you told everyone I was mentally unstable for starting my own company?" "We were trying to help," my father protested weakly. "Help?" I let out a soft, humorless laugh. "By mocking every achievement? By ridiculing my little consulting business at every single gathering?" Thomas finally stepped forward, his banker's instincts catching up at last. "The market analysis reports. The strategic plans that saved Carter Holdings last year, that was CSG Partners." "Actually," I corrected gently, "that was just me. A personal project, you might say," I continued, lifting one shoulder in a casual shrug. "I wanted to see whether your executive team could execute basic business strategy. The results were quite illuminating." My phone buzzed again, another secure message from the Singapore team pushing over updated contract drafts. The deal we were about to finalize tonight would send tremors through the entire global finance sector. Meanwhile, my family still seemed unable to process the new version of me standing right in front of them. "But your condo," Felicity stammered, still caught on the same superficial treadmill. "Your clothes, your lifestyle." "You mean my penthouse that takes up the entire top floor of the Aurora Tower?" I asked lightly. "The custom-designed wardrobe that costs more than this lodge? The lifestyle that includes private vineyards, secluded islands, and a small fleet of jets?" I gave her a gentle smile. "It's amazing how much you can hide when people are too busy judging surfaces to look beneath them." Just then, Evelyn appeared again, tablet tucked against her chest. "Miss Carter," she said in that crisp voice I'd come to rely on, "the chairman of the Singapore Sovereign Wealth Fund wishes to know if you'd care to join his family for dinner next week. Apparently, his daughter is quite an admirer of your economic white papers." "I what?" Elaine sputtered, blinking rapidly. "Oh, right," I said innocently. "Did I forget to mention the books? Those economic research papers published under N.C. Morgan? The ones that shifted modern finance theory." Thomas let out a strangled noise and slumped into a chair, his expression twisted between horror and mortification. "The acquisition documents will be delivered tomorrow," I went on, glancing at my diamond watch. "Consider it my New Year's gift to Carter Holdings, rescuing it from your spectacularly poor management." "You planned all this?" my father finally said, his voice hollow. "The timing, the revelation, everything." "Of course," I agreed, "though you made it remarkably easy, so focused on appearances, on social rank, on your tiny definition of success, you never noticed the empire rising right under your noses." I reached into my supposedly cheap leather briefcase and pulled out a glossy folder. "Here's a preview of tomorrow's Financial Times," I said, extending it toward Elaine. "I thought you might want to be prepared." Elaine snatched the paper, her hands trembling as she read the bold headline. Carter's strategic global founder revealed, Natalie Carter takes center stage in historic Singapore deal. Welcome. The press will be here by morning, I added calmly. I've already arranged a crisis management team to help you handle the publicity. Think of it as a final family courtesy. Felicity was still clutching her stock certificate like a life preserver. These shares, we could sell them, right? You could, I said, nodding slowly. Though I should mention, I added lightly, those shares have a 5-year lockup period. I gave Felicity a pointed look. I learned a thing or two about controlling assets from watching Elaine manage her social calendar. At that moment, Evelyn approached for the final time that night. Miss Carter, the car is ready. As I headed toward the door, my father called after me, his voice soft and unfamiliar. Starshine, he said, using the childhood nickname he hadn't spoken in over a decade. Can we talk about this, work something out? I paused, memories swirling in the fragrant air of pine and wood smoke. So many years I'd ached for his approval, his faith, his respect. We had years to talk, Dad, I said quietly. Years when you chose their values over your relationship with me. Now, if we need to talk, we'll do it through our legal teams. The drive to the private airfield was silent except for the faint hum of snow tires on icy roads. Outside, Aspen's New Year's fireworks exploded like glitter against the dark sky. My phone buzzed constantly with messages from relatives lurching between threats, pleas, and desperate negotiations. Shall I have the team reply? Eveline asked from the front seat. No need, I said, spotting my jet gleaming under floodlights. They'll learn proper business communication when the acquisition teams arrive tomorrow. The next morning, as financial networks erupted with news of CSG Partners' founder and the record-breaking Singapore deal, I was 40,000 feet above the Pacific, in my private suite, calmly reading the headlines. My phone buzzed with missed calls from relatives and Carter Holdings executives who'd once dismissed me. I sent them all the same thing, a photo of my first business card, the one they'd mocked, scrawled with, Happy New Year. Remember, appearances can be deceiving. A week later, as Carter Holdings settled under my control, I received an invitation to Elaine's New Year's gala. I declined, with a photo of me signing the Singapore deal, worth more than their family's entire net worth, captioned, Sorry, too busy being poor to attend. Because success is the best revenge, but timing makes it unforgettable. A year later, I wrote an unexpected epilogue. Elaine's Aspen Lodge had been auctioned off. I bought it through a shell company. Not to live in, my penthouse was far grander. Instead, I turned it into a business incubator for entrepreneurs from underprivileged backgrounds. The irony wasn't lost when the first startup from that lodge surpassed Carter Holdings' peak valuation. Now, every New Year's Eve, I host gatherings there for rising entrepreneurs. On the wall where Elaine's family portraits once hung, there's only one photo, me in my cheap clothes, building my empire unnoticed. Because the best success stories belong to those underestimated. Last week, Felicity, now a junior analyst at one of my subsidiaries, sent an apology letter. I pinned it beside my first company's stock certificate, a reminder that real success isn't just wealth, but perspective. If my story inspired you, show your support. Drop me a comment with your thoughts or advice. I'd love to hear how you've turned doubt into strength. Remember, build your dreams quietly and let your success make the noise. Together, we'll prove the underestimated can rise higher than